So late phase, it was from 1900 BC to 1500 BC, after which it collapsed. And main sites are Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Gandheriwala, which are now in Pakistan. Then we have Rakhi Ghadi and Dholavira, which are in India. So they're the five of the biggest Harappan sites out of the nearly 2000 of civilizational area. So the civilization, it was spread over 1.5 million square kilometer in India and Pakistan and Afghanistan. And we have 1500 sites in total. So they're spread over present day Gujarat, Haryana, Jammu Kashmir, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh. And the civilization, it was located on the banks of Indus and Saraswati rivers. Saraswati, which has believed to have dried up around 1900 BC, near the end of the civilization only. So the most characteristic features of the civilization were fully developed in this script, which had stamp seals with writings and or animals or some other iconic graphic modifications, standardized measures, which included cubic weights, which were made up of carefully cut and polished binary and decimal systems, and use of large scale use of the burnt bricks, which was standardized in size in the ratio 1:2:4, and they had lapidary art, which featured highly developed micro drilling of a very long beat. So says कि कितना developed थी the civilization. And
So if we have a question today, ki why Harappan civilization or why the information that we get from Harappan civilization is important for us today. So one would be the reason that we are talking about planned urbanization and architectural development. So this element existed during Harappan or Indus Valley civilization also. They had again grid-based city layouts. There were well-organized streets and there was sophisticated drainage system. So you can talk about that sophisticated drainage system, which is again the clogged drains, is today one of the major problems leading to multiple problems. Then we can talk about this also from the perspective of waste disposal also, or importance of zoning, then public water systems. Second area can be related to trade and economy. So here we see that things related to supply chains or expanding or building the international trade networks is important today's globalized economy. So even during Harappan times, we saw trade internationally with other civilizations like Mesopotamia. And we can say that this was early form of globalization, which was carried on further. We used rivers or seas for transport. So even today, we are talking about the development of inland waterway system, which is not that developed when we comparing with the developed countries, for example, Germany's. Then third area can be related to standardization and measurement. So in this case, you can talk about the standardization is, again, it is fundamental in industries, science and trade, which ensures that there is consistency, there's fairness and efficiency in the production and the commerce. So standardization and measurement is important from this perspective in current times. Innovations, again, we are talking about how to boost the innovations and the startup industry or the tech-led growth. But at the same time, we want proper order, proper uniformity and equity and fairness. So that is why we can say the growth and expansion of e-commerce industry can be related to it. And when it comes to fairness and competition, so role of Competition Commission of India is important. Then sustainable agriculture can be another area. When we saw that the Harappans, they utilized irrigation for farming and they grew crops like wheat, barley, and even the cash crops like cotton. So they were the early pioneers in sustainable agriculture. So today also we are talking about precision agriculture. We're talking about water self-sufficiency. So these are also areas, and like even climate smart agriculture when it comes to challenges related to climate change, because that is directly impacting the productivity and the lives of people and the food security element. Cultural unity and social organization can be another positive, where we can say that how diverse populations they can be unified and they under the shared governance, trade and cultural norms. So art and craftsmanship were they were also promoted at that time, like we talk about pottery, metallurgy or bead making industries. There were terracotta figurines, jewelry, even seals were there. So today we are talking about the tribal huts, which are there organizing them more, or tribal melas, which are there to promote even the one district, one product scheme. So that is also on similar lines. Then environmental awareness and water management, this we have seen. And in this we can say that importance of wells and reservoirs is so important that today we are talking about how to revive these traditional cultural practices like bawdis, or we are talking about creation of talabs and then revival of the marshlands. So this is how it is connected.
The illusion of equality. It feels great to be treated as special in crowded spaces. So this article talks about the idea of equality, which is shaped in the Enlightenment discourse, and it gave rise to ideas like nation state and individualism. Then French revolutionists, it all spoke of equality and freedom at the same time. Now, in current times, if we see urban ecosystem, caste is not prioritized, but we see implications of caste activities in Hindu temples and festivals. For example, rich and powerful, they get the power, they are connected to get easier access to the deity enshrined in the temple or a pandal. And the opinion makers, they often use their wealth, yeah, power, yeah, celebrity status and network, which helps them get easy access to crowded shrine areas. For example, the VIP line or the VIP pavilion. इसके अलावा we've seen in other areas also, just say Buddhism is also believed to be egalitarian, but we have many new converters which have noticed key privileges as the male monk over the nun, and there is no equality between many Buddhist texts. Another example is Bhutan, the happiest nation in the world, but only the king is allowed to wear a yellow stole, and the people are told what clothes they must wear in public. So they can appear as belong to a single group and they can be distinguished from others. उसके बाद talking about the idea of equality, which played a key role in shaping society since the World War. So people have challenged oppressions, which is based on race, caste, and gender. And women, they now know that they deserve the same opportunities as men, and they have LGBTQ, which seek the same rights as their heterosexual counterparts. Now, इसमें we can talk about positive discrimination to reducing inequality in the society and increasing the equality discourse. So that is being challenged. And we have movements that reject the idea of merit and challenge common understandings of gender. के बाद, so there's always someone who's higher or lower than us. So society creates scales to enable measurement and comparison. And we all want better livelihood, better schools for children, better neighborhood. And the rich wants to feel rich and powerful, which implies to work, life, and religious spaces, which can be rationalized using politics and economies or spiritual ideas like karma. So the main thing that the article talks about is that it feels great to be treated as special even in crowded spaces. That is how when myths of heaven and hell have levels. So basically, we all like being treated special, and that is where inequality comes in. Legacy of Paris 2024. So, Olympic and Paralympic Games, they were display of veracity, ambition, unity, and India bidding to the host 2036 Games. So, the Games was not just an occasion which witnessed records breaking, it included remarkable achievements of the Indian para athletes delegation and so the games sports can be seen as a great catalyst for adapting society to persons with disabilities. Example being Paralympic and creating a level playing disability at the mobility of spectators with disabilities. Then talking about Paris, so we have 100% of the bus and tram networks in Paris which were made wheelchair friendly, and the National Railway Company and the main airports, they were doubled, and the number of available wheelchairs were more doubled, and about 1,000 taxis were made available among other measures. So the games, they've shown that sport has a much broader role to play in the society. It can foster unity, encourage people, and to better up and accept differences. उसके बाद the role of sports and also in strengthening health and preventing illness has also been put forward. Sustainability being a key priority during these games, this will remain one of the main legacies. And so Paris 2024 Olympics was also special because they made history by gender parity in the field of players, and which basically meant that they had equal representation male athletes. So faster, higher, and stronger is the motto of Olympics and Paralympics, which is also the spirit of the partnership between the nations. This was most good. The next article talks about for a more efficient democracy. So simultaneous polls will reduce burden on voter, lessen election expenditure. Now, talking about the country's democratic journey, so to see many ups and downs and the serious aberrations um, when emergency was imposed and rights were curtailed. So, talking about problems which are there with election process, so we have money, power, booth capturing, abuse of government machinery, etc. But over the years, we've seen changes were being made and technology was used and the concerns were addressed, which made Indian democracy stronger. Now, people know that they can unseat any government at the center or the state through the power they hold through the vote. And we need to continuously strengthen the democracy so we can reflect the popular and will, and simultaneously we can reduce problems for the administration election commission. बीच में और क्या हो सकता है? answering.
And you can move to the next topic.
Must be challenged in House and Court. So the Kovind Committee, which serves the role of election commission and does not reflect the concerns of the state. So Union Cabinet it met earlier this week to approve the proposal of for one nation, one election, which was laid out by a high level committee, and it was headed by former President of India, Ramnath Kovind. So the committee recommended two-stage process with elections in the House of the People and State Legislative Assembly to together which held together, followed by elections to the Panchayat and Municipal Corporation. And future of the democracy will be determined by whether the policy of holding simultaneous elections now passes the test of parliament, constitutional courts, or public opinion. So the idea of free and fair elections is at stake, and it is a matter of deep concern and considerable anxiety which is related to constitution's basic structure and fundamentals of the country's election process are being modified by committees set up by the government and not just the Election Commission of India. So Dehors, the role of Election Commission of India High Level Committee itself must be questioned for the very fact that it does not represent India's diversity by one elections. And so the scheme it further proposes that in case governments are dissolved before the completion of their full term, we can have a separate midterm election which could be conducted to put in place a government only for the unexpired period, what remains of the full period. Now, such a commitment from a union government that dissolved the election state government of Jammu and Kashmir in 2018 and did not hold elections for more than 5 years. So, outrageous claims are made in the scheme or amendments which are concerning the terms of the State Legislative Assembly. Under Article 172 of the Constitution can be carried out with the ratification of state. So, the bill seeking amendments to the Constitution Representation of People Act is to bring out the best in the parliamentary processes and all political parties and persons who are in debate with the diversity of the country and future structure of the constitution, they can speak in one voice against simultaneous elections, which could be a future for fair and free elections. Next article ahead of Amur Falcon's arrival, Manipur district bans their hunting. So Manipur Tamenglong district, it gears up to welcome its winged guest, Amur Falcon. So the district administration on Wednesday it has imposed a ban on hunting, catching, killing, and selling of the bird, which is locally known as Kahawapuina, with immediate effect. And so it talks about migratory birds who arrive in parts of Tamenglong and bordering areas from their breeding grounds in northern China, eastern Mongolia, and far east Russia. So they arrive in the first half of October and they roost until November end before they resume their journey for the wintering grounds again in the South Africa. Now, there was an order which was issued by the district magistrate, which directed the owners of air guns to deposit their hunting women at the office of respective village authorities. So, poaching and destruction of wildlife in any way for food possession or otherwise, it is a punishable offense under Wildlife Protection Act 1972, sections 50 and 51. And so, this period is crucial in the life cycle of a falcon. And authorities, they should keep their eye on authority.
And the IUCN status is least concern. So they are known to follow one of the longest migration routes in the world, and they're having their breeding grounds in Siberia, northeastern China, and then they migrate. Final destination is South Africa for the winter. And the journey, then they have a stopover in India in states like Nagaland and Manipur. So here we see that they come to India during the months of October and November. So in Nagaland, we see around the Doyang Reservoir in Nagaland, and the town of Pangti in Nagaland is famous for them. And apart from this, conservation efforts have been taken. So an conservation campaign was launched by the Nagaland government with the participation of local communities and Wildlife Trust of India and the Bombay Natural History Society. So this was named as the Friends of Amur Falcon initiative. And then there is a Moor Falcon Festival in Nagaland in Pangti town also. Ecological importance is that they feed on the insects, particularly termites and locusts. So they help in the controlling population of the pests during their migration. And by conserving these birds, India contributes to maintaining ecological balance across the regions. And from the perspective of like research and development, so these birds, they are tagged also so that we can track their routes or how even climate change is impacting them. Apart from this, they also showcases or symbolize cultural significance, as we've just talked about celebration of festivals. And legal protection, they fall under India's Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So under it, hunting, capturing and killing the birds is a punishable offense. And then also these species are listed under the Convention on Migratory Species. So this is an international convention.
Or capacity. So this talks about success of reframe criminal laws will hinge on plugging infrastructure deficits and knowledge gaps. Now, the enactment of three new bills, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, and Bharatiya Sakshar Adhiniyam. So they replace IPC, CRPC, and Evidence Act, and intention to safeguard the rights of the public and to eliminate obstacles in people's access to those rights and adapting them according to present day needs. Now, the question is to how we can give effect to these new mandates. So, the most ambitious aspect of the new law is the emphasis on speeding up trials. So, the judgments they must be delivered within 45 days after trial completion, and charges they must be framed within 60 days of the first hearing. Now, this raises concerns about the system's preparedness to cope with the stringent timelines. And talking about the current data by National Judicial Data Grid, it shows that 5.1 crore cases are pending across all courts, and the workload, which averaged 2,300 cases per judge in 2022, it has gone up to 2,400 cases in 2024, which says means that trials they take longer. Now concerned about prisoners is that they must be afforded more opportunity for bail, and BNSS, it extends the provisions of bail as provided under CRPC section 436A, so which would allow first time offenders to who have served third for their sentence to apply for bail. Now this move from coalition towards a more rigorous evidence-based law enforcement, it must be welcome. But talking about current capacities to assist law enforcement, are they're wanting by a long measures. So chronic shortage of labs, trained forensic professionals, inadequate infrastructure, mismatches between human resources, equipment, and demand from the ground, and underfunding. So the situation could be exacerbated. We can have recently legal mandates, despite the government's launch of National Forensic Infrastructure Enhancement Scheme, so which aims to inject 2254 crores for upgrading and expanding the forensic capabilities. Now, embracing of technology, it also assumes key electronic evidence present or court में, which can uh, strengthen the chain of evidence and it's remained intact as it passes from hand to hand over time.
So we are seeing that
And the success of the
is it is more rigorous, evidence-based law enforcement would be followed. More scientific, we have created the National Forensic Infrastructure Enhancement Scheme. So more of forensic labs. Then we are seeing that the reforms are more woman-centric and victim-centric. For example, it is mentioned that the amended laws mandates that statement of victims in sexual violence cases must be recorded in presence of female police officer and it must be videographed. Then we have that the entire mandate assumes women may be more likely to report the complaints if a woman is present. So the challenges related to gender-based violence cases, this is being focused, and fast delivery of justice is another core area which we are seeing a shift and more simplification of the law so that people can also understand, and integration with again other institutional measures, like we have the national judicial data grid. So it is more integrated so that we are again we can say one is this thing, national judicial data grid, another is the national forensic infrastructure enhancement scheme which has been there, and more evidence based things so that we can properly track this entire chain of justice. And then we have again CCTNS system also. So bail is not jail. Again, this is also, we are seeing that this is a reality. Bail, not jail. So as even this case, Supreme Court stated that bail should be the norm and jail shouldn't be that way. Like, so here we can talk about this in context with the prison reforms also. So this law provides that the under section 436A of CRPC, so it is allowed the first time offenders who have served a third of their sentences to apply for the bail. So this thing is a part of now the reformed law. So more opportunities for bails.
steps of holding simultaneous elections to taken up over. There was over here Lok Sabha and Assembly elections which were held simultaneously till 1961, when after which election cycles had to fall out of sync since many legislatures were dissolved before their time. So at present, elections to Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Odisha, Sikkim assemblies are held together with the Lok Sabha elections. FATF lauds India's progress, sees scope for more action. So Financial Action Task Force, it has mandate to launch a frontal assault on money laundering, and it has been taking significant steps to tackle illicit finance, intergovernmental organizations. Now recently placed India in the regular follow-up category the top among four categories in terms of combating money laundering. And it remarked that India's mutual evaluation report is critical and country continues to improve its system as its economy and financial system continues to grow. So India's performance on mutual evaluation, it occurs significant advantages to the growing economy and demonstrates the overall stability and integrity of the financial system, and good ratings that would lead to better access to global financial markets and institutions, and it could increase the investor confidence. So India has made significant steps in financial inclusion, more than doubling the proportion of the population with bank accounts, encouraging greater reliance on digital payment system, and making use of simplified due diligence for small accounts. And the efforts have supported financial transparency, which could contribute to anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing efforts. And the number of money laundering convictions is low, with many cases pending trial. So the other three categories are enhanced follow-up, grey list, and blacklist. Lower port tariffs and more Indian ships on the card. So the state-run Shipping Corporation of India will acquire 5 new functional container ships and other agencies which would be involved in export logistics like Container Corporation and ports to reduce tariffs to help exporters tide over the problems of shipping delays, shortage of containers, con congestion of ports, and government. So the decision was taken by the interministerial meeting, which was called by the Ministry of Commerce to address the problems which are faced by exporters due to the shipping related disruptions. Now, the lack of enough domestic shipping capacity has meant that 90 to 95% of the cargo is transported by the foreign shipping lines, so which gives them control over access and freight rates, which limits India's ability to manage cost and schedule, according to a recent report by the Global Trade uh, Research Initiative. Now, for immediate relief to exporters, it has decided to allow empty containers to be stored for a period of 90 days in the yard of JNPA free of cost. And the government will continue to regularly monitor the situation with the new review scheduled towards the end of the October. So it will ensure custom clearance at ports and simultaneous screening of the 20-feet containers revenue. Next article talks about more investor-friendly reforms for oil and gas exploration. Now, the government is expected to come out with the bids for oil and natural gas assets under the 10th round of open accurate licensing policy. Now, the government expects contracts over the upcoming rounds, and so Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, it has introduced a new bill in the parliament to amend the oil fields. So the Oil Fields Regulation Development Act 1948, it talks about making oil and gas exploration in the country more attractive for company. And the bill it proposes to broaden the definition of mineral oils, which previously only included petroleum and natural gas, and introduce the concept of a petroleum lease. Now, this lease it would cover various activities which are related to mineral oils, including exploration, prospecting, production, and making them merchantable. So, this would be a much needed policy measure which would improve ease of doing business in the Indian upstream petroleum sector. And right now, we have a lot of different clearances to sort across various ministries, like Ministry of Mines. And the government is expecting a term deal between India refineries and Russia for supplies of crude oil to conclude by next year. Next article, government working on new digital policies. So the new policy will focus on telecom sector roadmap for the next 5 years, and it would replace NDCP to 2018, which was effective till 2022. And it would also revamp the strategy on some of the earlier set targets. So the main focus would be on emerging technologies, local manufacturing, identification of new spectrum bands, roadmap on 6G, and reducing reliance on imports. So this would keep in mind the rapid pace of technological developments, such policies which needed to be revamped after a 5-year period. And the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India is currently working on a consultation paper to examine whether OTTs they need further regulations. Nepal celebrating Constitution Day. So, talking about Nepal and India, so they enjoy a close and cooperative relationship, which is based on shared values and mutual respect, and the high level political visits between the two countries, which reflect their deep respect and trust for each other. And Nepal and India, they also share strong cultural, religious, and social bonds, which could be further strengthened upon working together to address common challenges and exploring new opportunities. Some glimpses. Financing growth. Increased dependency on bank credit has possible implications for financing